What's up everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another video of tutorial series PHP Specials. I'm your host Anwar Ali and I'm here today with new video, new topic, using Google Map API to automatically locate the location for your HTML form and saving it to the database so that we can again auto-populate the map as per the user selection. So this has become a common practice in nowadays form that users are allowed to choose the location directly by dragging the cursor or dragging the marker in the map. So we'll just learn how to let the user choose the location through the map and getting the information from the map about what is the latitude, what is the longitude, what is the location that I chose, so that we can use them and save them to the database. This might be a topic that most of the new developers are struggling in, and I also got some requests from my friends and that I should cover the topic as it is commonly used nowadays. So I decided to prepare a script that allows user to choose the location from the Google Map. I hope it will be useful for you. Now, in order to save some time, I just tried myself because I don't exactly have memorized each and every codes of Google Map API. Even I need to look at documentation and prepare the scripts for you. So what I did was I just grabbed the scripts from the Google Map API and prepared it in such a way that you can just start using it. So today what we'll be doing is we'll be just creating a map, something like this, and user will be allowed to choose drag the map pin this way, and you can see as I'm moving my marker, the latitude and longitude is automatically changing its position. And once I drop the pin or marker somewhere, you can see that the address is also changing. So if I go to somewhere called Old Banesho and I just place my marker here, you can see that I am somewhere in some of the place called Jyoti Marg, Kathmandu. Similarly, if I go to this place, I will be in another place. So you can see that as I move the marker from one position to another position, the address changes automatically, and as I drag the marker, the latitude and longitude also changes respectively. So this might be a good option for the user to select their location easily through the Google Map instead of letting them type in, so that we can get an accurate address from the users. So let's see how do we implement this. And one more thing, that we don't usually show the latitude and longitude to the user like this, but just for the demonstration I have displayed it over here. So this is my address, this is my latitude, and this is my longitude. We'll be just saving the latitude longitude to the database, but we don't usually show the latitude and longitude to the user. What we generally do is we keep this in hidden input, like input type equals to hidden instead of input type equals text. Right now I'm using input type equals text so that I can demonstrate it to you, but whenever you develop a script or develop a code for saving the user's location, what you have to generally do is you have to make it input type equals hidden, so that a normal user of your system does not have to bother about latitude and longitude, and you can just grab it and save it to the database through input type equals to hidden. So let's see how do we do this. I have already done the code. I'll just try to explain it the best way I can. And also just to remind you, I already have a GitHub repository set up for you, so you can download this source code or you can clone it anytime you like from the GitHub URL shown in the description below. So you can download the database if you want, you can download the GitHub location from there, and all the source code are regularly updated after the video has been uploaded, so you can grab the source code and try it out for yourself. Okay, the first thing that you need to do before starting to work with this is create your own Google Map key. So in order to do that, you need to go to this URL just let me start from really beginning. So if you search for Google Map API in the Google, you will get this link over here. If you just click it and click on Get Started, you will see the list of APIs provided by Google Map. So if you are an Android developer, you can use this API. And since we are trying to do this through JavaScript, what we'll be doing is Google Map JavaScript API. You can just click on it and you will see some. If you want to go through the tutorials provided by Google Map itself, you can go through the guides, references, sample examples, and support for from the Google, which covers some questions and answers. So you can go through this if you want, but I've already gone through this and prepared a script for you which you can use. So firstly, you have to get a key to use in your own API, and in order to get your key, you can just click on the key and give some name to your project. Okay, so for example, I've just created a project called PHP Specials. So for you, it must be a text field where you can type your project name. You can just type in your project name and click on next, and it will take some time and generate a key for you, which you can use in your API. And I will guide you on how do we do this. Just we need to wait for a while, and it will generate a key for us like this. You can just copy your key by clicking it here. So once you have copied, now just save it somewhere so that we can use it whenever we need. So once you have copied, just click on done. Okay, so I've prepared some scripts for you so that it is easy for you to understand, and instead of writing everything in as a script, I've created different functions of JavaScript where we'll be doing whatever we want. Okay, so before going to the script, let us I've excluded the HTML head and body so that I can just run to the code. So first thing that you need to do is you have to place this jQuery script somewhere in your body. It is not actually, we don't actually need this, but since I've used some jQuery here and some other places, so I found it that if I use it, it will be easy for me. So you can link the jQuery from by linking the jQuery CDN to the script this way. The second thing you need to do is link your Google Map API script to your page, and for that you can just use this link. So maps.googleapis.com/map/js, and after the question mark you have to provide your key by key equals to the key that you just copied. So in my case, my key was this, so I just used it. In your case, it could be the key generated by your, so I just generated this key, so I can use this. In your case, you have to copy your own key and paste it over here that we just generated. So after pasting the key, make sure that you don't have spaces like this. Just remove the spaces and start. You are ready to work with Google Map API. Okay, so I'm just using my existing key. So after doing these two things, I created 3 input tags, one for address. I'm not using name because I will be not saving these to database. You can do it yourself, I'm sure about it. So I just left the name to be blank, and I just gave some ID so that I can use it in my JS file. So the first input I created, it was for address, and the second input I created was for latitude and longitude. So what is latitude and longitude if you don't know about it? So these are the coordinates in Google Map that exactly points us like where we are. Each and every point where we stand on in the earth, each and every point has its own latitude and longitude. So with reference to latitude and longitude, we can determine where we are, in which address we are. So each latitude and each longitude has its own address. So this will be the way that we locate our position through the marker we move. So once we move the marker, the latitude and longitude starts changing, and that is how we determine the address, because each address is associated to specific latitude and longitude. Okay, that process of converting the address to the coordinates or the coordinates to address is known as geocoding. Okay, so we are about to geocode our system. The first thing I just want to make you familiar with some terminologies for Google Map API. So this process of changing the address to coordinates is known as geocoding. So what we'll be generally doing today is we will be geocoding our map. Okay. The second thing that I'm doing here is I created a div where I'll be displaying my map like this, like this. I mean like this. So this div that I just created, div id equals to map, is to display our map where user can move the cursor to select their desired location. And I gave a height to it, so because a div by default does not occupy any height. So in order to display our map, I just gave a random height, 200 pixel. You can make it like 500 pixels for a bigger map, like this. So if you refresh this now, you can see the map is a little bit bigger, and you can also control the zooms, which I will just go through right now. Okay, so before you start, now it's time for the script. So just after you start the script, the first thing that you need to do is you need to create a variable called geocoder, or any name you can give. So I just created a geocoder for my geocoding, and in order to create the geocoder, I need to create an object for this geocoder class. So google.maps.geocoder, by writing this script, you don't need to know much about it. You are just creating an instance for geocoder. So this is what I've done. So you can follow this by just creating a variable and assign it to geocoder, which we'll be using after this. Now, in order to display a default map over here, what I did was I just created within a document ready. This means as soon as the page loads, I'm calling a function called initialize map. Now let us understand that this is the function that runs by default. Once the page load, the first function that is being run is initialize map. Now let us understand what initialize map does. So once the page load, we can see a map is being loaded, and there's a cursor pointing somewhere, right? So this is what we are trying to do inside initialize map. Initialize map is not a function provided by Google API, but rather it is a function that I just created so that everything is modularized in proper way. So what I did is, as the document is ready, I called a function called initialize map, which I have defined over here. So what I'm doing, because initially the latitude and longitude of my inputs are blank, right? There is no value in this. So what I'm doing is, if I'm just loading the page, as soon as I call the function initialize map, I'm trying to grab the latitude and longitude. So what I did inside initialize map, I created two functions called latitude, and I'm lat underscore value and long underscore value, and grabbing the value of that ID, latitude and longitude, which means I'm grabbing the value from these two inputs, which is blank. So initially what I'm doing is, if the latitude value is 0 or it is blank, I'm setting it to some custom latitude and some custom longitude. So where did I get this from? Okay, so this is a place. This is for the latitude and longitude for a place which is inside Kathmandu, and it is known as Singadarbad. So it is kind of center of the Kathmandu, so I just thought of using this. You can choose your own latitude and longitude. So if you want to get the latitude and longitude of your desired location, what you can do is you can just go to maps.google.com and search for any place that you want to point by default. For example, if you want to search for, let's say, there's a place called Pokhara in Nepal, which is a famous place here, and if you just search it, you can see in this URL, this number before comma is the latitude, and this number after the comma, okay, is the longitude. So you can copy this number and place it in your default latitude, and you can copy this number and you can place it in your default longitude. So this is what I did. So what I'm doing is, if my latitude is blank, which is blank by default, yes, so as soon as the page loads, the latitude is always blank. So I'm manually setting the latitude value to 27 points this, and my longitude value to 85 point this, okay, so that my cursor points somewhere. So this is what I'm doing. So firstly, as a document loads, I'm calling a function called initialize map, and I'm setting some basic values that I might be using whenever a map loads. I want to place a cursor somewhere, so that is what I'm trying to do. I'm defining my default position, which is this. So this is how I created a default value. I have not used it yet, so let's see now what I do. So using this latitude and longitude, there is a function called lat_long in Google Map API, and that defines the position or the latitude, that assigns the latitude and longitude to the Google Map API. So in order to do that, you just need to call new Google Maps lat_long this way, and pass this latitude and longitude value over here. I didn't want to pass the blank values or 0 and 0 to this value. So what I did was, if the value is 0 for latitude and longitude, I'm assigning my default value to it, and I'm passing that value to my lat_long instance. So that is how I created an instance called lat_long, and I initialized it by passing the default value if it is blank. Okay, so what is the reason for doing this is, so while we are just visiting a page and we want to select the location, the location is always 0. So in that case, we assign a default value, right? But what if we have already placed some position and have already saved it to database? In that case, I would like to auto load the saved value to my map. So once I have already selected my location, suppose my location is somewhere different than this position default value. I've already moved my cursor and pointed my location to be somewhere specific. In that case, I want to load my map. I want to load my location in the map by default that I had selected earlier. So in that case, the latitude value will be something that is being fetched from database, and longitude value will also be something that is being fetched from database. So in that case, the lat value and long value will not be 0 or blank, so it will automatically grab the value that is being fetched from the database. So in order to make things easier, I just did this much thing, so that if we are auto-populating value from the database while editing the form, you can use this script. Will work out for you. Okay. Now, after we have grabbed the latitude and longitude, we are creating an instance of lat_long and passing these value, so that our lat_long instance has this location being set up. Okay. The second thing, once we have created our default value and lat_long, now what we need to do is, now we need to create our options that we need to load on the map. So my first option is, I am zooming the map to be 14. So option, this is a kind of JSON maybe. So JSON array or JSON object, JavaScript object. So I'm assigning 14 to zoom, and my center would be the position I just set through this lat_long, that is this coordinate and this coordinate. So this latitude and this longitude points to a location, and I want to center my map to that location. So I'm just passing this lat_long to center, and my map type ID is road map. So you can change this by other parameters, but currently I want to just show a road map, so I'm using this. So these are my basic options for the map. So the first thing I defined a lat_long using my predefined value or the value that is being grabbed from the database. And the second thing, I created my option where I want to zoom the map and I want to center the map to the recently set latitude and longitude, and my map type ID would be road map. So this is how I created option for my Google map. Now thirdly, I am creating a map now. So I'm creating a variable called map, which is new. So you can see now for each and every action there is an instance, or there is a function of Google Map API. So firstly, there was a geocoding that we used over here, that is to for geocode is like it will be used in some places while geocoding the position. So the first function we use is geocoder. Okay, and the second function that we used was inside Google Map, and which was lat long, that is to initiate our latitude and longitude of the Google Map. And third thing I used was map type ID, and I set roadmap to it. And the fourth function I used is map. So this function actually generates the map to our desired position, to our desired content. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to now load a map in a div with ID map, so which is over here. So this is my div with ID map. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to find the document, or find a section, or find a block, or find a tag with ID map, and I'm trying to load the map in that div with these options. My options that we just set, that is zoom to 14, and its center is lat long, and its map type ID is roadmap. So I'm trying to load a roadmap which is zoomed by 14, and its center should be the defined lat long by calling this function. So I'm calling map function, where I'm passing my desired div or desired ID, where I want to load the map with these options. So these options should be passed as second parameter for this function. So I passed my options to to this function as second parameter. So what this will do is this will automatically now load the map in the div that I just mentioned. So this is the div where the map is being loaded. So if I just comment out everything else, like if I comment out marker, and if I comment out all these things for now, you can see that I just loaded a that it will just load a marker. It will just load a map with no marker and no nothing at all, and the center is the latitude and longitude that we provided. So now in order to display the marker, we need to call another function, that is marker. So you can see that I'm calling a function called marker and assigning it to a variable called marker. So what I'm doing here is I'm step by step trying to use the variables. The first variable that I custom defined was lat value and lot value, which is being used in lat long, and it returned something that is being assigned to lat long. Now I'm using this lat long to set my option, and this option is being used in map while loading the map. Now I just created the map, and I'm now creating a marker which is to be showed in this map, and I'm using this variable over here so that the marker displays in this variable. So in order to create a marker, we call a function called marker of Google Maps API, and I'm providing the position of that marker to be exactly the center of the map, which is lat long. So I'm giving my position to be lat long this way, this variable. So I'm using it here. You can give any title you want as you wish. So I'm giving it Singapore Kathmandu, which is somewhere that I'm trying to point to. You can give the title this way. Similarly, I want to show the marker in this map, so I'm passing the variable map to this map, and I'm saying draggable equals to true. So if you don't want the user to drag the marker, so if it is the map is like a read-only map where user can just see where your marker is, you can just change it to false. And if you change it to false, you can see that now the marker appears, but it is not movable. So you can see the entire map moves, but the marker does not. So if you change it to true, now you can see the map doesn't move, but the marker does. So map can also be moved by placing it somewhere else, but if you want to specifically move only the marker, you can do it by just clicking on the cursor or clicking on the marker and just move it. So this is how you create a marker. If you want to make the marker draggable, you have to write it true, and if you want the marker to not to be draggable, you can just change it to false. Okay, as soon as the marker is done, now we want to geocode our position as the marker moves. So what I'm doing is I have called a function called geocode position, which I just created, and I'm passing my latitude and longitude, this instance over here. So geocode position is being called, and I've created geocode position over here. So my lat long instance is being sent to here. So that is what I did. So I'm calling a function of geocoder, that is geocode. You don't have to just memorize all this. So I've already prepared it for you. You can just reuse it. You just need to understand the flow of how it works. So after we have created the marker, now we have to geocode, and in order to do that, the geocode position is actually used in order to autofill this input. So if I want to like say update the address as soon as the dragging of the marker is done, I created a function for that in order to change the name or change the value of this address, and that function is geocode position that I just created, where I'm passing my latitude and longitude and calling the geocode function. And as soon as the geocode function is called, another function is being called, and its response is being used to display the address. So what I'm doing is, so if I get some response through this function, then what I'm doing is I'm checking if I've got a proper response by checking if response is something has some value, or it is true, or it has some value, and its length is greater than 0, means it is not blank. So what I'm doing is I'm calling a function called update marker address, where I'm sending the formatted this value will give you exactly the formatted address. So the 0th index and the formatted address will give you the exact address of your cursor, the stream, not the latitude and longitude. So by passing the latitude longitude instance over here, I'm trying to grab the address through this, and I'm calling a function called update marker address by passing the formatted address to this. And if the response is blank, or its length is less than 0 or is equal to 0, this means I am not able to determine the address, so I'm just passing a string called cannot determine address at this location. So what update marker address does is it just instead of calling this function, you could have just copied this and place it over here if it is too confusing. So what update marker address does is it grabs the address from the response and sends it to this function, and the input with ID address, its value is changed as per the address passed. So the value of the address gets updated through this function. Similarly, I have another function now. After I have updated the position, which means the exact location, the string or the name of the location. The second thing I want to do is I also want to update the value of latitude and longitude. And in order to do that, what I've done is I've created two listeners. Okay. So this is not for dragging the marker. So this function was called just after I created a marker, and I'm actually setting this default value, or this value that is being dragged from the input, and I'm calling this function and passing the lat long over there. So the equivalent of this lat long, actually, if you see in the real time, so I'm actually, you need to understand two things. I'm adding two listeners to the Google Map event. So I'm creating an event, and I'm adding a listener to that event, and the listener is for the marker, and there are two listeners, that is drag and dragon. So drag listener is actually responsible for like if whenever we are moving or we are dragging the cursor, the drag event is being listened, and drag event is listened whenever our dragging is completed and we leave the marker. So this is actually calling the event called drag, because I'm dragging the marker, and whenever I stop it and drop it, it is listening the event called drag end. So I'm creating two listener over here, event listener over here. One is for drag and another is for drag end. So you can see that whenever I'm dragging, I'm updating the value of latitude and longitude over here. So if you notice here, whenever I'm moving, only the latitude and longitude changes. But whenever I drop it and my drag end is completed, this updates. Because since it takes time to update a little bit, so I placed it in drag end, and since it is instantaneous, so the latitude and longitude is being determined instantaneously. So what I'm doing is, as soon as I'm dragging, I'm just changing the latitude and longitude value, and whenever I drop it, even the address changes. So I'm creating two. So this is using drag end, and this is using drag event. So in drag event, I'm calling the function called update marker position, and for drag end, I'm calling geocode position. So if you see update marker position, what it does is it gets the current position of the marker and updates the latitude longitude automatically. So if you see this function update marker position, which is here, I'm just grabbing the lat long, and I'm just setting the value of latitude to the lat long dot lat function. It will return you the latitude, and I'm setting the longitude by lat long dot lng, and it is returning the longitude. So at the real time when we are dragging, this function is being called, and the latitude and longitude is being set automatically. Okay. Similarly, after the drag end, we call a function called geocode position, where we pass the marker's position. So if you go to geocode position now, it is, we have already discussed this, it gets the current position lat long, and it is trying to get the real value of that position, not the latitude and longitude, and which is being returned by this. So we are using this string to update the marker address by just setting the input address value to this string. So instead of doing this, you could do it just like this. So $has address dot val equals to str. You could have done that. So this way, whenever we are moving the cursor, we can set the latitude, longitude, and address in the real time. And now we can just have a submit button over here, which when clicked will submit this form to somewhere, and where we can grab the data through get or post and save it to the database. And if you are not aware of this, on how to submit a form and grab the data from the form through get and post and save it to the database, you can refer to my previous video where I have discussed on how to grab the data on various topics like search and Ajax form upload, Ajax form submission, and other topics. You can just go through them and you will understand how to submit the data. So I think this was it for today, and I will share these codes in my GitHub, and the link to the GitHub is below, so you can refer to this function, these sets of functions of JavaScript I created. And maybe it would be easier for you if you just copy this entire script and place it in somewhere, like I just copied it and I'm placing it in a JS file called new file control S gmap.js. So gmap.php for my PHP file and gmap.js for my JS file. And in JS file you don't have to mention the script tag, so I'll just remove this, and I will just remove this, and just don't forget to add this script file, link this script file in the PHP file. So what you need to do is you can just write script src equals gmap.js. So this way you can link your gmap.js to your PHP file. Now it looks much cleaner. So your JS file has a pure JS script, and your PHP file has only PHP script, and you should keep in mind that you should link this script below the jQuery and Google Map API. So this way you can do it. So I'll share these two files in my GitHub. You can download these two files from my GitHub and try to go through it. And if you have any confusions, or if you have some comment, feel free to comment And if you like the video, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, don't forget to share. Just, just help me or support the video by just sharing and liking it. I will see you tomorrow again with the new video. Till then, have a nice day, have a nice time. Goodbye.